Why do you think this fella said what he said, Simon? I've met this chap, the Saudi chairman of Newcastle United, Yasser Al-Rumayyan. After the Carabao Cup, Newcastle lost to Manchester United. He said, look, we've already gone to the next level. Don't worry. We are going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last couple of days, he's chosen to make mention of Eddie Howe's position at the football club. Newcastle, of course, and it hasn't gone unnoticed on us, have lost 3 out of their 4 so far in the Premier League, including that most recent one, 3-1 defeat down at Brighton. Al-Rumayyan says that Eddie Howe, no, he retains the full backing of the football club's board. Is that any reason for Eddie Howe this morning to be slightly dubious of what he's heard?
Why did he say it? Probably some scroty Machiavellian journalist asked him. Probably like Craig Hope popped his head up again. Aha, I can see some division somewhere.
Well, that would be...
Because we lost a few games.
If he did, that would be good journalism in my book.
Is it? I don't think asking about... I think it's rubbish journalism to ask somebody after a couple of bad games, is the manager under any threat? Come on now. Why would Eddie Howe be under any threat?
It wouldn't be Craig, but somebody has.
Well, irrespective of who it is, I'm throwing Craig around. I'm just being facetious.
I mean
Craig's a good journalist. I know that.
They've lost 3 out of their 4 so
far.
far.
Is that what we've come down to? Really? Eddie Howe has done a really good job for 18 months. He's had a slight bump in the road, and all of a sudden we're building up some particular narrative that his job under threat. Now, if I'm the owner of that football club, I wouldn't even give that particular question. If he's volunteered it and said, "Excuse me, there's something I want to say. You haven't asked me this, but I'm desperate to make sure that everyone understands this point. Eddie Howe's job's safe, right?" Well, of course, that's not what happened, is it? Someone's asked him, given the fact that Eddie Howe's had a quite slight bump in the road, is his job safe? It would be ridiculous to assume that it's not.
Well, let's hear from former Newcastle player Kevin Nolan was in Drive yesterday, and he was asked about Newcastle's poor start to the season.
You know, after 4 games, when you think about it, and the actual games they've played, it's going to be a difficult season because it's new for everybody. But also, I think when you're expecting Champions League year in, year out, you know, you look at the money what Liverpool's just spent, they were out of it last year. Chelsea just spent, they were out of it last year. You know, so it's going to be a massive achievement for them to go again. And I think they've built on what they had as a squad. I don't think they've gone ridiculously bad in terms of throwing money here, there and everywhere. They've been really, you know, I'd say low key considering to what I expected when the takeover, you know, happened. So I'd hope that he was given time. And you know, that's what we want, because we want to see that. We want to see good English managers doing and getting opportunities to stay in jobs.
And of course,
what's controversial about that then?
Well, of course, you would hope, says Kevin, that Eddie Howe will be given time. Of course he'll be given time. Of that there's no doubt.
Okay, then.
But the very fact that this is the nature of the conversation at this point in the proceedings in mid-September regarding Newcastle, whereas last season
nature of the conversation.
It was anything but.
It's not the nature of the conversation. It's just a journalist asking a question because he thinks he's got the zeitgeist on what these ownership model might expect of its manager. It's got no indication, no ball of wool to pull a particular thread out of. No one's given any indication that Newcastle are in any shape or form dissatisfied with Eddie Howe. Everything is pretty rosy in the garden, besides a couple of bad results, and one of them particularly standing out, which was ultimately the Liverpool game when they were 1-0 up and they had Liverpool down to 10 men. There's very little wrong with Newcastle. I always said at the beginning of this season, this is going to be remarkably difficult for Newcastle to emulate or to match what they did last year. And I think they got sensible ownership in there, and you can see that it's moderately sensible, because despite other people's expectations, whilst they've spent a lot of money, they have not spent significant amounts of money. If you look at what they've done previously, I was doing an analysis for various reasons. Bruce got 100 million over 2 seasons. This guy's had 300 million. So the scale of what Newcastle are prepared to do is significantly greater, hence the outcomes on the pitch are significantly better.
So.
Well, of course. Yeah. Of course, but what we've not seen is what people expected was this coming over the hilltop and spending £500 million, which they were able to do to some extent because Mike Ashley had run such a tight ship that the financial fair play situation wasn't going to impact Newcastle because they weren't carrying these inordinate amount of losses that other people might have been carrying, like Mashiri problem at Everton for the new incoming owners of Everton if they actually complete that deal. So I think it's a silly conversation. I think it's an unnecessary conversation. I think it's a destructive conversation, because I think Eddie Howe doesn't go from being somebody that everyone was waxing lyrical about when they opened the season smashing Aston Villa 5-1 to a couple of bad results, and all of a sudden the narrative is starting to be peddled, and it'll be a narrative that's seated in the media and waiting for it to happen, and it will keep on building up and keep on building up, and every time Newcastle don't have a particularly compelling result, up it will pop, and it needs to be stopped.
Yeah, but it won't be stopped.
No, it won't be stopped. I know, but
Sam,
I'm expressing my view on it.
You know the game, and you know how the game.
But
is covered.
he should have given it no credence.
In your time at Palace, were you never asked? Incidentally, did you back your manager fully at this stage? Of course you were.
No, not really, because I wasn't a very approachable media person as a chairman to the media, because I had scant tolerance of you lot.
You spoke to me.
I spoke to you.
Yeah,
that was
you were
more,
rude,
more
but you spoke
a pity.
to me.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.